Bombs rained, food vanished, and fear ruled the streets, but ordinary German civilians found shocking ways to survive. Here are 25 World War II survival tricks they used to endure chaos, hunger, and destruction daily. We begin with a section on food and nutrition survival as we take a look at the first trick, the ersatz products. As starvation loomed over wartime Germany, survival depended on ersatz, substitute products born of desperate ingenuity. German civilians transformed scarce rations into creative culinary illusions. True coffee vanished, replaced by a bitter brew of roasted acorns, chicory, and barley. Bakers stretched meager flour supplies by mixing in sawdust, ground acorns, or dried potato peelings to keep bellies full. Meat became a luxury, forcing families to secretly cook stray cats, darkly dubbed roof rabbits. Through these makeshift provisions, ordinary citizens turned scarcity into a science, using chemical creativity and wild foraging to cheat death during the darkest days of the conflict. Moving on to the next trick, let's take a look at potato peel conservation. During the dire food shortages of World War II, German civilians adopted rigorous conservation methods to survive. Among these, the preservation of potato peels became a primary strategy for stretching meager resources. Instead of discarding skins, resourceful households scrubbed and salvaged them to capture every available nutrient. These peels were often dried and ground into a makeshift flour to supplement bread or fried when fats were accessible. This level of meticulous thrift turned ordinary kitchen waste into a vital defense against hunger. Such practices illustrate how absolute resourcefulness and the minimization of waste were essential for civilian endurance during the conflict. Quickly, let's take a look at another food trick, the use of vegetable gardens in public parks. As Allied bombings disrupted supply lines and choked German cities, urban spaces underwent a radical transformation to combat looming starvation. Public parks, manicured lawns, and ornamental flower beds were quickly repurposed into vital vegetable gardens. Citizens cleared away debris to cultivate hardy, nutrient-dense crops like cabbage, potatoes, and turnips directly within their communities. These communal green spaces blurred the lines between public property and personal survival, turning everyday parks into defense infrastructure against hunger. By converting public creation grounds into agricultural lifelines, civilians took control of their food supply, turning urban greenery into a crucial tactic for endurance amid total war. On to the next hack is bartering in the black market. As the official currency collapsed under the weight of total war, traditional commerce in Germany vanished, giving rise to a thriving black market. Survival required a shift from worthless paper money to a pure barter economy based on immediate utility. In shadowy alleyways, desperate civilians traded treasured family heirlooms, silver pocket watches, and fine jewelry directly with farmers for essential nourishment like eggs, butter, and flour. Cigarettes and coffee became the ultimate underground currencies. This illegal trading network bypassed strict state rationing, transforming valuable personal histories into the literal calories required to keep families alive amid societal collapse. Moving forward, we take a look at another trick, foraging for wild food. As supply lines collapsed and urban grocery stores emptied, desperate German civilians looked to nature for their daily sustenance. Foraging for wild food transformed from a leisure activity into a vital wartime necessity for families facing starvation. Woodlands and overgrown ditches became natural supermarkets where citizens gathered stinging nettles, dandelions, and wild berries to secure essential vitamins. Acorns and beech nuts were collected to extract cooking oils or grind into flour substitutes. By turning to the earth, ordinary people used ancient botanical knowledge to supplement their meager rations, using the wilderness as a crucial hidden lifeline to survive the war. Our sixth trick that German civilians used was one-pot meals. As fuel and food supplies dwindled across wartime Germany, the one-pot meal, or Eintopf, evolved from a traditional comfort food into a strategic weapon for civilian survival. The Nazi regime actively promoted this culinary practice to conserve precious cooking gas and coal, requiring only a single heat source. Households threw whatever meager ingredients they could find, wilted vegetables, potato scraps, and rare trimmings of meat into one boiling cauldron. This method maximized thermal efficiency and ensured that no vital nutrients or juices were wasted in the cooking process, turning scarce rations into a warm, filling lifeline that sustained families through bitter winters. Still on food and nutritional survival, we take a look at the next trick, which is rabbits and small livestock. As commercial meat supplies vanished across blockaded Germany, urban spaces transformed into makeshift farms to stave off starvation. Forbidden by circumstances to rely on traditional butcher shops, resourcefulness drove civilians to breed rabbits and other small livestock directly within their homes. Basements, balconies, and cramped courtyards became tightly packed cages for these rapidly reproducing animals. Fed on a meager diet of kitchen scraps, weeds, and lawn clippings, rabbits provided a vital, high-protein food source that required minimal space. This domestic livestock farming bypassed failing government supply lines, turning apartment complexes into essential hidden engines of civilian survival. Moving on, let's take a look at using industrial oil for cooking as a mode of survival. During the final years of World War II, the civilian population in Germany faced a catastrophic breakdown of the food supply chain. As blockades intensified, basic necessities like butter, lard, and vegetable oils vanished from market shelves. This period of extreme scarcity forced many into desperate measures to find any source of calories or cooking mediums. Historical accounts highlight the grim reality of life in a total war economy, where the search for sustenance led to the exploration of non-traditional and often hazardous materials. These survival efforts underscored the profound desperation and the severe physical toll exacted on the civilian population. Finalizing on the sector of food and nutrition survival, let's take another look at another form of trade, which was trading for cigarettes. During the final years of World War II, the collapse of the German Reichsmark forced civilians to rely on unconventional barter systems for survival. As official currency became nearly worthless, portable luxury items, particularly tobacco, emerged as a stable medium of exchange. Civilians often traded these goods on the black market to secure life-saving essentials like bread, coal, or medicine. This shift to a barter-based economy allowed individuals to bypass failing state rations and hyperinflation. In such desperate times, the value of an item was determined solely by its immediate utility and demand, making non-perishable goods vital tools for endurance. Heat and shelter were very important needs in survival during World War II. In this sector, we'll take a look at burning household furniture due to coal shortages. As Allied bombings dismantled infrastructure and blocked transport, a catastrophic coal shortage left wartime Germany freezing through brutal winters. With temperatures plunging and power grids failing, civilians faced a lethal threat inside their own homes. Survival required immediate, ruthless pragmatism, driving families to dismantle their own living spaces for fuel. Wooden chairs, heavy tables, picture frames, and even floorboards were systematically chopped up and fed into small stoves. This sacrifice of domestic comfort for physical warmth transformed treasured family heirlooms into a vital heat source, proving that in total war, psychological attachments surrendered entirely to the raw necessity of keeping families alive. Moving on, let's take a look at another survival trick for moving in the basement. As Allied air raids pulverized German cities into desolate fields of rubble, civilian survival retreated entirely underground. This subterranean existence became known as ruin life, where families transformed damp, cramped basements into permanent makeshift sanctuaries. Beneath the shattered remnants of their homes, citizens reinforced ceilings with heavy timber and knocked holes through shared walls to create communal escape networks. Surrounded by flickering candlelight and the constant thrum of falling bombs, these dark cellars evolved from temporary shelters into functional living spaces where people cooked, slept, and endured. Living in the ruins redefined survival, turning subterranean fortresses into the ultimate defense against total surface destruction. Still on heat and shelter, let's take a look at our 12th trick, which is sharing body heat. As winter temperatures plummeted and coal supplies vanished under Allied bombardment, freezing German civilians turned to a primal biological defense: sharing body heat. With home heating systems destroyed and windows shattered, insulated rooms became unlivable. Families, neighbors, and strangers huddled closely together beneath mountains of heavy blankets, coats, and carpets to trap collective warmth. Multiple generations crowded into single beds or compressed into small basement corners, using human proximity as a literal shield against hypothermia. This collective huddling stripped away social barriers, transforming basic physical closeness into a critical, desperate tactic to survive the lethal cold of war. Moving on to the 13th trick on the World War II survival trick, let's look at improvised insulation by use of newspapers. As the bitter winter cold pierced the shattered windows and bombed out shells of German homes, survival relied on immediate low-tech ingenuity. With traditional building materials entirely exhausted, civilians turned to daily newspapers as an improvised form of thermal insulation. Resourceful families stuffed thick layers of newspapers into wall cracks, lined their boots, and stitched pages directly into the linings of thin winter coats. By trapping dead air within the tightly packed fibers of the paper, this everyday waste product became an effective barrier against hypothermia. This clever adaptation turned worthless propaganda sheets into a vital, life-saving shield against the lethal elements. The next trick in the World War II survival book was flag tower shelters. As Allied air raids threatened to obliterate urban centers, Germany's massive flag towers transitioned from ferocious anti-aircraft fortresses into ultimate civilian sanctuaries. Constructed with concrete walls up to 3 meters thick, these towering monolithic bastions were virtually impenetrable to conventional aerial bombardment. Inside their fortified walls, up to 30,000 terrified citizens packed tightly into specialized multi-level civilian decks. Complete with independent water systems, hospital wards, and power generators, the towers offered an oasis of absolute safety amid a sea of fire. Seeking refuge inside these concrete giants became a legendary survival tactic, offering civilian life total invulnerability against the heaviest airstrikes. Sealing windows with cardboard was another way to conserve heat and increase safety. As shockwaves from bombings shattered glass across urban centers during World War II, gaping window frames exposed civilians to freezing winds and smoke. With glass production halted, patching these openings became a critical priority for survival. Resourceful households turned to thick cardboard, cutting panels to fit the empty frames and securing them with tacks or adhesive. While this makeshift solution plunged living spaces into near-total darkness, it effectively blocked out freezing drafts and kept precious indoor warmth from escaping. This clever use of scrap materials protected families from hypothermia, transforming ordinary cardboard into an essential barrier against the elements. It's so important, yet if you didn't watch this video, you might have missed it. To ensure that doesn't happen, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Finalizing on heat and shelter, let's take a look at water collection from pipes as our next trick. As Allied bombings systemically shattered urban water mains, access to clean drinking water vanished across Germany. Foraging for survival, civilians turned bombed-out building infrastructures into vital resources. Ruptured vertical plumbing lines, hidden within crumbling walls, became literal lifelines. Families navigated precautiously through unstable ruins, carrying buckets to catch the remaining liquid draining from higher floors. This hazardous extraction process required the patient dripping over long hours to collect a single gallon. By salvaging trapped water from dead pipes, urban citizens successfully bypassed destroyed utilities, turning skeletal architecture into a source of hydration. Onto our next section, let's take a look at security and transport, with the next survival trick being blackout curtains. As Allied campaigns intensified over Germany, total darkness became the civilian population's first line of defense. The strict enforcement of blackout regulations required households to completely obscure all internal light sources. Families utilized thick, dark fabrics, heavy tar paper, or specialized black paper panels to seal windows tightly. This masking prevented the smallest slivers of light escaping into the night, denying the enemy navigators visual anchors for bombing runs. Operating under absolute darkness inside their homes, citizens transformed ordinary window dressings into a critical proactive tactic for urban concealment and survival. Quickly, let's take a look at the 18th survival trick, which is the white paint for safety. As blackout regulations plunged German cities into total nighttime darkness, Navigating streets became incredibly hazardous. To prevent accidents without alerting enemy bombers, civilians used luminescent and reflective white paint to mark urban hazards. Handrails, curb edges, and tree trunks were systematically painted to guide pedestrians through pitch-black corridors. Citizens even applied white bands to their clothing, turning themselves into visible silhouettes for oncoming traffic. This low-tech navigation system transformed urban surfaces into functional guides, allowing communities to move safely through the dark and preserving civilian mobility amid constant aerial threats. Moving on, the next trick is about sensory mapping the city. As Allied air raids shattered landmarks and choked German cities with dense smoke, navigating the ruins required a new sensory map. With street signs obliterated and vision obscured by debris, civilians learned to navigate entirely by sound, smell, and touch. The distinct rumble of a collapsing wall, the sharp stench of broken gas mains, or the heat radiating from a burning cellar became critical orientation points. By mapping their urban environments through altered senses, civilians traveled safely through hazardous zones, using internal spatial awareness to survive the physical chaos of war. Using public transport until it collapsed was an effective method of World War II survival. Amid intense Allied air campaigns, maintaining mobility was essential for civilian survival across Germany. Relying on public transportation became a desperate strategy to commute to vital jobs, secure rations, and escape bombing zones. Streetcars and trains operated through shattered streets, often running on improvised power lines and cleared tracks. Commuters packed into overcrowded carriages, braving the constant threat of low-flying fighter strafings. Utilizing this fracturing transit network until its ultimate collapse allowed citizens to sustain urban functionality, proving that mobility was a lifeline in a crumbling world. Finalizing on security and transport, let's take a look at an important survival trick in carrying essential documents everywhere. As Allied bombs pulverized German cities, identity and survival became tethered to paperwork. Civilians adopted the vital habit of carrying essential documents like ration cards and ancestral papers everywhere. Housed in waterproof pouches, these papers were protected from fire and water during sudden air raids. Without them, individuals lost access to food rations and faced arrest by the Gestapo as suspected deserters or spies. This strict bureaucratic discipline ensured that even if a home vanished, a citizen's legal existence survived. Moving on, let's take a look at our final sector in health and resource management, with our next trick being clothing modifications. As wartime textile shortages stripped German store shelves bare, clothing modifications became an essential art of survival. Resourceful women unraveled old, worn-out sweaters to knit fresh garments and repurposed heavy curtains into durable winter coats. This relentless textile upcycling transformed domestic waste into vital armor against the bitter winter cold. Quickly, let's take a look at the next trick, using soap substitutes. As total war blocked imports, real soap vanished, forcing German civilians to invent chemical substitutes to combat disease. Households boiled wood ash to extract lye, blending it with sand or clay to create an abrasive paste. This gritty ersatz soap maintained vital hygiene, fighting infections amid a crumbling urban sanitation. Let's take a look at our 24th trick, which is saving fat for fuel and soap. As blockades choked German supply lines, animal fat became a precious resource hoarded for survival. Civilians painstakingly skimmed grease from cooking scraps, preserving every drop. This salvaged fat was repurposed to lubricate squeaking machinery, craft primitive candles, or boil into harsh soap, turning kitchen waste into an essential domestic fuel. The last hack we look at today is soot removal to prevent fire. As Allied incendiary bombs rained down, clearing soot from chimneys became a vital survival tactic for German civilians. Overheated stoves burning low-grade fuel accumulated high flammable residue. Meticulous sweeping prevented internal chimney fires, ensuring households did not accidentally ignite their own shelters and betray blackout concealment to bombers overhead. In the end, these World War II survival tricks reveal how ordinary German civilians battled starvation, bombings, and uncertainty with resilience, creativity, and desperation, proving survival often depended on courage, sacrifice, and quick thinking.